because I do 1,300 crunches and sit-ups 4 times a week.
What's a dose? Can you translate for us?
Winner of the gold medal and the champion golfer of the year is Ernie Els.
All right, everyone. Well, welcome back to the Go Track, the podcast about golf and golf-adjacent stuff, mostly from Africa. I'm very excited about today's podcast interview. This is something we have had on the cards for a while. Now, actually, my guest today does not know this detail, but guys, today is actually episode 50 of the Go Track. So when we were recording our first few episodes last year on our iPhones with Jacques sitting outside Baby City while he was buying nappies. I do not think we would have believed we would have made it past 5 episodes, but here we are. And in honor of this, we are doing a quick merch giveaway, guys. So please give us a comment or a review on Spotify or Apple Podcasts, and we'll pick out the best one and we'll send you guys a Go Track hat of your choice, which if you've been following on our Instagram, you would have noticed we've popped some hats out there. Now on to the show today, which promises to be quite an adventure, and it's going to be difficult to squeeze this into an hour, I'm sure, but we'll do our best. I'm pleased to introduce and welcome, calling in from the Cotswolds in the UK, Sarah Forrest, the CEO of the Golf Guru Group, better known on social media as Travel Lifestyle Golf. Sarah is an established journalist, and her passion for golf and travel has seen her make regular contributions to golf publications, including Golf Monthly, Today's Golfer, Women in Golf, and more. Sarah and her husband, Steve, have recently completed a golf-inspired adventure in Africa. Without further ado, Sarah, welcome to the show. Nice to have you with us.
Thank you, team. Thank you for having me.
So, Sarah, about a year ago, I was at the Princess Grant Golf Club north of Ballito, more or less a year ago, and I pulled into the parking lot and I saw this beautiful Land Rover parked in the parking lot with some signage on the side, which kind of caught my eye and looked very interesting. And by the time I'd made my way into the pro shop, my friend who I was playing with at the time, who is also from the UK, was in a conversation with you guys already and introduced me to you guys. And we chatted for maybe 5 minutes, if that. But you shared your details, and I've subsequently been obviously following your guys' adventure, but can you just explain what you guys were doing there and what that was kind of the start of?
Okay. Well, the Land Rover, as you've alluded to, is called Andi the Landy. It's a British Land Rover, and it's ex-military, so it's slightly more robust than other Land Rovers. And we shipped that over from the UK to South Africa with the goal to play 100 African golf courses. And
Sarah, just give me a little bit of background to this trip. So maybe talk a little bit about your and Steve's background and kind of how you ended up planning this trip and what inspired this trip to begin with.
I guess the inspiration came from the love of Africa. We've been very fortunate to go to and from South Africa for the last 30 years. We've been to Morocco, Egypt, a couple of places in the north, Tunisia. We've never actually done the middle bits, so we decided, well, let's just go and do it. So we did. But I've been in the golf industry for 20 years. I've been very lucky. I've travelled extensively from Argentina to Japan. I had my own golf tour operating business in the beginning, which focused on females. I was the first person in the UK to have a female-centric golf travel business, so that was 20 years ago, and probably a little bit too ahead of my time, to be honest. But I've done all sorts of things in the golf industry that's led me up to where we are now. So I've been mystery guest for hotels or golf courses who want to appeal to a female demographic. I've worked with tourist boards, independent hotels, independent golf clubs, just to help them to get onto the golf ladder and how to appeal to people who might want to come and visit. Then I've also run events with celebrity TV chefs and things like that. So I've had a lot. And I've also been on TV as a BBC pundit as well. So a variety of things have culminated to where we are now. A couple of years ago, Stephen, my husband, of 36 years, took early retirement. And the goal has always been for him to come and join me in my business. So the last 20 years, building up the brand, building up the business, building up my knowledge of the golf industry. And he came to join me, which was a massive relief because it took off the photography side of it and the videography side of it. And he also learned how to fly the drone as well. So that took all off me, and I just had to focus on the writing and the social media side. So together we work to bring a complete picture. And it's anything from written articles in magazines to our own blog, to social media, to YouTube channel videos, and everything that people want to listen to us or read about.
So you've covered a lot of the basics there, and I noticed, watching quite a few of your videos, there's a real mix of the travel elements of the experiences that you guys have, as well as food. So I didn't realize you had that sort of food background, and then obviously the golf, and that comes through in the videos. The one thing you didn't mention, which I'm interested about. Now, I grew up, my father was a passionate Land Rover owner, and I spent most of my weekends looking at the bottom of my father's feet as he lay underneath our Land Rover, repairing it. So, were one of you a Land Rover expert, or was Steve? Is there some sort of mechanical skills behind the motivation to attempt to drive a Land Rover through Africa? Because I'm well aware of the challenges that brings.
Yeah, I mean, and you're quite right. Once you're a Land Rover nut, you're a Land Rover nut, and we've been fortunate to have a few Land Rovers, and we settled on this one, which, as I say, is an ex-military vehicle. It's called a Land Rover Wolf. But yeah, you do need to have an aptitude, an understanding of how things work. But it's also quite rewarding when you open up the bonnet of the vehicle. You can actually see something, and it's just not one moulded plastic mess. You can actually see something. You can tinker with things, and I've seen the bottom of Stephen's feet a number of times on this trip too, and I've seen him changing tires in the middle of game parks when we've been lost, and it's been quite exciting. But that's the pros and cons of a Land Rover. The interest in Land Rover is people say, "Why are you driving a Land Rover?" We get two sides of it: people who absolutely love them and people that don't understand why we're doing it, and unfortunately, that's just the way it is. But if you go to some of these countries, the rescue vehicle that's on the side of the road to go and rescue any vehicle that's broken down is generally a Land Rover. Now, that tells me something. But Toyota have done a fantastic job in Africa. Their infrastructure is way better, but there's just something iconic about owning a Land Rover. And our Land Rover is actually 30 years old. So we're not talking like a new thing with air conditioning. The air conditioning is the vents, it's very different to the new ones that are plastic molded inside. Ours has something that when you open the bonnet, you can see something.
Absolutely, and that's exactly the type of Land Rover that I grew up driving in on trips to Namibia. My father actually mounted a little, literally a desktop fan onto the primary dashboard, and so we had the vents and we had a rotating fan, and there was some sort of, and I'm sure you experienced this on your trip, but there's sort of a kinship that exists between Land Rover owners. I remember every time we passed a Land Rover owner, they would always wave at us, and this was also getting back to kind of how I noticed the vehicle, and that is just there's something iconic about seeing an old Land Rover, and it just inspires that sort of travel, and particularly in Africa. So, okay, so you decide to do this trip. Where do you guys start? How do you go about planning your route? And just give us a basic outline of what your plan was, and maybe sort of what ended up happening in terms of the overall trip.
Yeah, what we planned to do is not what we ended up doing, as I'm sure you can imagine. We had plan A. We drive down from the UK through Spain into Morocco and all the way down the west side, and we spent probably about 7 weeks searching what to do there, and we came to the conclusion it was just not worth it. Not because the countries aren't beautiful in their own right, but there were some countries that were difficult to get with a British vehicle, with British passports or whatever, and there were some countries that literally we would be driving straight through and not enjoying because they wanted to know exactly what date we arrived and what date we were going to depart, and we just didn't know that. We had to have some fluidity in our plan. So I thought, okay, work, after 7 weeks of researching it and contacting the various local authorities and whatnot, and we decided, okay, that's fine. We will ship the vehicle from maybe Greece and then drive down the east side. Then the Sudan kicked off. We thought, yeah, we don't really need to do that either. So our plan C actually turned out to be the best plan, as it always does. And we shipped the vehicle from the UK to Durban. And by doing that, and we could identify the countries that really interested us for golf and for lifestyle adventures, but also really interested to the countries that we wanted to go to, rather than just having to travel straight through them just to get to from point A to point B. So we were able to focus on the countries that we wanted to cover, and we ended up driving through 11 countries, 11 African countries, starting in South Africa and finishing in Kenya. It's been best driving. I can't explain how much better it is to drive than it is to just fly in, see something and then fly out. We've seen all sorts that you would never see if you weren't on the road travelling. And as I say, we've had a few breakdowns. We've had a number of amazing people stop and ask if we want some help and that kind of stuff. And it's been absolutely fantastic. But just to go back to your point about the food, we're very much a golf and a lifestyle channel. So we want to show the golf, but we also know that when people travel for the golf, they need to know where to stay. They need to know where to eat. They need to know what else they can do. And we also want to appeal to the non-golfer and the have your cake and eat it situation. So a golfer can go on holiday with a non-golfer and they can play golf, and the non-golfer can do X, Y, Z because we've shown them what they can do. So we have, even back 20 years ago when I was doing the tour operating for the females, there was always a great golf resort is a great golf resort, but why would I come there? So we always show the why, that you can get great golf anywhere in the world. Why would you go there? So we show the extracurricular things, the things that's unique to that particular country, the things that we experience. So that's why we've done it how we've done it. And I think that does make us slightly different, and the fact that we're a little bit older.
No, I mean, it's such a great point. And I think, we've started, we've actually got a few podcasts which we haven't actually released yet, but we've sort of sketched out the details of, which is talking about building golf trips, particularly just local golf trips in South Africa, but really getting into outside of the golf courses, getting into the details around, the best houses to stay in, the best restaurants to go to, as you say, the other activities, simple things that just make a trip more enjoyable. Outside of it makes absolute sense to cover all of those, and especially when you're driving, because you, as you say, it's a completely different experience to flying in and out and essentially living in the sort of package holiday world. So you mentioned the 11 countries. So can you just run sort of through your route?
Yeah, sure.
I'm assuming you kind of started. You more or less started just after I'd seen you then, which was in Durban.
Yeah,
is that right?
We saw you, and that was golf course number 20. So we'd already played 19 other golf courses when we met you. We flew into Joburg. We have family in Joburg, so that was actually quite lucky because the Land Rover took longer to come over than we were advised. We started to play golf in Joburg whilst we were waiting for the Land Rover. So we started at the River Club, and you'd think, oh my goodness, how can it get any better from here? So we played a few in Joburg, Blair Athol, Woodmead, and then we got a one-way hire car down to Durban, and en route we stayed at we played and Champagne Sports and Bosch Hook, and I know you've talked about Bosch Hook before, and Gowrie Farm as well. So we played a few on the way down to Durban as well. And then when we collected the Land Rover, then we kind of set off, and we started in Sun City. So we just kind of went northwest heading towards Botswana. But we didn't stay in Sun City. This is what I was alluding to about the lifestyle element. We actually stayed in the Pilanesberg because to us, more attractive, not that Sun City isn't attractive, but for a broader scope of golfer to stay in the Pilanesberg and play Sun City is everything, really. You've got your game parks and you've got your good golf. And then after that, we set now I have to do it like this because this is the route we did. So from South Africa, we went to Botswana, in at Gaborone and straight through to Chobe, across to Zimbabwe, and then down Mozambique, and then we popped back into South Africa where we met you. We were doing this because we'd made a commitment to meet with people for Christmas in South Africa. So when we popped back into South Africa, that's when we started on the Princess Grant, and then all the way down the east side. When we got to George, because we'd done some of the garden route already, and everybody knows the garden route, we actually turned right. We turned up into Swartberg and Prince Albert, that kind of area, and we played Oudtshoorn, which people probably have never played before. It's a different kind of course. And then popped down to Cape Town for Christmas, and then up the west side. After that, we went to Namibia, Zambia, Malawi, Tanzania, Rwanda, Uganda, and finished in Kenya last week.
Wow. Geez, I didn't realize it was so recent that you just finished. Okay, so that explains why you did this sort of little circle around South Africa, and then I saw you at the 20th course. Now, this wasn't on my list of questions, but I'm interested. Botswana, I've seen your video of Namibia and that, but Botswana, golf in Botswana. Tell me about that. I mean, did you play golf there?
We did. We played a few golf courses in Botswana. We started in Haberone Golf Club and just made our way up. We played Francistown, nice little 9-hole, run by a guy who just is so relaxed about golf. It's quite neat. Impala on the course. And then we went up to Chobe. We didn't play many in Botswana. It's not known for its golf, but it was nice to actually highlight some of them at least. Yeah.
Okay. No, because I mean, I'm familiar with a few of the golf courses in Zimbabwe and Zambia, but yeah, I had no reference frame for Botswana. So I'm gonna ask you a couple of questions around golf in South Africa, obviously because we kind of a South African podcast, but obviously am interested in the rest of Africa. But you've kind of outlined your roots. Kind of talk me through. I know we chatted offline the other day, and you said it's very hard to list your you don't really rank courses, but just talk about some of like your favorite courses you played in South Africa, and maybe some of the ones that were like the most surprising for you.
I think what you have to understand is every golf course offers something different to everyone. Now, the golf course is catered for that region. So when you get down to catered for a bigger region, a bigger populace, a bigger tourist trap, that kind of thing. Whereas when you get into some of the smaller golf courses like Cirrus, you drop down from the beautiful mountains, and there beneath you in the valley is the golf course laid out. So that to me is beautiful. The golf course itself actually plays quite well. So you've got all sorts of surprising elements like that. Obviously, Cirrus people probably don't even know about, but Hex Valley, quite enjoyed Hex Valley as well. Some of these quite bizarre golf courses. I think one of the surprises was Wild Coast Sun. We weren't expecting the golf course to be as good as it was. And I played some I know, it sounds awful. I've played some RTJ golf courses before. He has done a few in Africa, mostly in Morocco is where I've played them. But to have, quite often when you have a golf course and you've got a hotel, the focus is on the hotel, not on the golf course. And the history of Wild Coast Sun, the gambling. And it's like the hotel is almost secondary to the golf course. The golf course is so pretty, it's such a nice layout. It was a surprise. We did enjoy Princess Grant as well. I love the openness of these big wide golf courses. They are very playable, and that makes them enjoyable. Got something like, I think you just talked about Cotswold Downs. We love Cotswold Downs. It's very similar to the Cotswold courses we have here. So that was kind of a smack to remind us of. Yeah. So it's very, and obviously we know the designer there as well. But there's so many, even Cathedral Peaks, so you think to yourself, oh, that's a bit of a goat track, you would call it. But actually, when you start to step back and look at where it's located and the scenery and the views, you think, whoa, this is beautiful. So there's so many. I also liked Zimbali, and I think that's fairly controversial. Some don't. I did. I like the Worcestershire. I think they call it the Worcester, actually. The Worcestershire is... Are you the Worcester or the Worcestershire? We're definitely Worcestershire here in the UK. But the Worcester...
in the Western Cape?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So that's a golf course with... if it was in the UK, it would be Heather. and you've got some kind of shrubbery in the middle there, and that makes it also quite interesting there, especially when they say don't go in there, there's snakes in there, and you think that you need to be telling my ball, not me, So
yeah. So it's like I think it's sort of that like fynbos that we call it fynbos here. It's that sort of low shrubbery, but very beautiful with flowers and
exactly.
The Western Cape has a number of courses that are like that. So it's interesting, the quite a few of the courses you mentioned are some of my sort of almost like hidden favorites. And while the Wild Coast Sun, it's interesting. I actually had a sort of a kind of a colleague, somebody contact me recently. They were writing an article about the Wild Coast and wanted to get some information, and I was quite surprised that they hadn't played it yet. I wrote a few things down, and it's when I first moved to KwaZulu-Natal, it probably was immediately my favorite course that I played when I played it, because I just thought, wow, it's just, you just feel completely out in isolation out there, and some of the holes on there are just quite remarkable. As you say, the variety of courses that we have, I think we don't actually realize sort of how lucky we are in terms of, from the very lush sort of tropical on the East Coast across to these almost desert type courses on the Western Cape and that. Sarah, you guys had previously done a trip to the George sort of area from what I understand. So you were familiar with a lot of those courses.
Yes. Yeah.
So that they didn't make up any of your courses that you played. Is that right?
No, that's right. The only one course that we replicated was the River Club, and we thought, well, we can't miss this. It's just too beautiful. So 99 of them were of the challenge. But no, we have previously been to the George area and played the golf courses down there. So we know that when people think of golf in Africa, they think of Africa. We also know that when they think of golf in South Africa, they think of the Garden routes and the Cape Town area. We wanted to show something quite different, and to show the East Coast has really worked. The lovely little gems that you can find that people don't know about. Humewood, it's a nice course, very much like a Scottish links course. It's lovely. And then you've got the Royal Port Alfred. I liked Royal Port Alfred as well. There's so many things, and as you've said previously, because your country has about 450 golf courses, we didn't actually need to move out of South Africa, but we didn't want to just focus on South Africa. And if we did focus on South Africa, we wanted to focus on things that were different in South Africa, places people didn't know about, and that was our driver really, and that's why we went right when we got to George. We turned right up into the hills, and that's out there.
So I promise I will move on from South Africa, but. How many courses did you play in South Africa as part of the 100?
We played, of the 100, we played 26 in South Africa.
26, okay. And can you give me one golf course that you're pretty sure most of our listeners would never have played, that you think was a real treat and a real surprise?
In South Africa?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. That's a bit difficult because you have such a selection, don't you? I think it's probably something like Royal Port Alfred, because it's kind of almost a little bit out of the way. When you start getting up to St Francis Links and you go a little bit further, what do you go for? And it's in between the top bit and the bottom bit, and it often gets missed a little bit. But then also Worcester is one that maybe people don't know about, and that's really quite a nice course as well. I think that's about it, really, because all the other ones I know you've covered on your podcast or played. And Charlie is a nice memory.
Well, there's lots of courses that you guys played, which I haven't played yet. So certainly a place like Worcester is definitely one that I would probably add to my list. Okay, so you guys you move into Namibia after being predominantly in South Africa. Sort of, I had a question around, and I was actually going to get to this towards the end, but maybe I'll switch it around. So I looked at your video you did of the Namibian golf courses. Obviously, very unique in kind of the global golfing landscape. I think it's fair to say. So, my question, I was really interested in your perspective, is that obviously the game of golf originated on these lush links, grassland playing fields. And obviously, as we know, it was taken around the world sort of in the wake of the colonial trade routes and establishments. Now, I've played on a lot of what we would call the goat tracks in my time, but I don't think I've played on anything quite as severe as some of the courses you played on in Namibia. So I'm interested in your take. What is it about the game of golf that can translate from its original sort of habitat on this like grass origins? What is it about the game that allows it to be played in places like that? And as a follow-up, is it sustainable? And do you see some of those courses kind of still in existence in 30, 40, 50 years?
Okay, so the first bit, the basic principle of golf is a stick and a ball and you pop it in a hole. That's all you're doing. So where you are with that stick and that ball and that hole, it doesn't really matter. So that's the basic principle of golf. You try and get that silly little ball in as smallest hole in the world for as few shots as possible. The thing that's very good about golf in Namibia is they haven't tried to make it the green grass. They've actually worked with and they've compromised and made that golf course unique. So to play a desert golf course is like playing a photo negative. Everything is the wrong way round. You've not got the lush green fairway, you've got sand. But you're also given, you may or may not know this, but you're also given reprieve because you can actually tee up the ball. So you can play on a par 5, you can play a driver, short iron, because you can tee up the second on a tee.
Cool.
So it's so good, and they've found workarounds. And I think that if you were to stick to the rigidity of golf as it was originally planned, you wouldn't have these workarounds. And that's why golf is unique. It needs to be unique, and it needs to appeal to the masses. And if they were trying to do green grass in the middle of a desert, well, what a nightmare! Their water bill must be huge, and if they can even get fresh water. In fact, some of the golf we visited in Namibia, we were really disappointed because we wanted to play browns. We didn't want to play greens. We wanted to play browns. And I used to say to them, I said, why have you made the greens grass? Work with what you've got naturally. And then that will make you unique. And also the maintenance issues are less problematic. So we did eventually get to play browns. So that's another story. But yeah, I mean, it's a classic example of how a country has evolved to make the beautiful game of golf accessible for all.
So, as kind of the follow up, how do you see sort of local people participating on those courses? Are they well supported? And I guess I sort of threw it in my original question, but are there places that you think won't be around in 50 years' time? Is it sustainable in a lot of those places?
Well, lots of it always comes down to money, and money is driven by membership. So when you've got a small membership, that's obviously is always going to be a problem. In the case of somewhere like Marienthal in Namibia, they have a great social side. So you turn up there and they've not play golf necessarily, but they've got a good bar and a social side. They're all chatting and whatnot, and some have been out to play golf and some haven't. So they've made it happen by making that the social hub of Marienthal in that example. Walvis Bay also has a really, really nice social hub. Somewhere like Henty's Bay, they're struggling a little bit, but the holes hitting down towards the Atlantic Ocean are stunning. So it would be a real shame to lose some of them, and I dare say some will go by the by, but other courses as well. It's down to the local participation. And if they can't engage and involve, for example, schools. And even in Longabarn had the Mashi course, but there was foot golf on the Mashi course as well. So they've evolved to try and bring something different to a broader audience. Whether you love or hate foot golf, that's up to you. But if it helps people keep the golf course running, then why not do it?
Yeah, no, I think that's right, and I think it's actually down to some of these clubs themselves to as to how much they're going to encourage younger participation. I think one of my bugbears about golf in South Africa, having lived in the UK previously, is the number of what we call mashy courses in South Africa is far fewer than it should be. When I was in the UK, we would play that sort of golf almost every weekend, and it's very accessible, and it's a great way to sort of bring people into the game. So, as I'm sure you've experienced and are aware, the the game here has there's a far more bigger economic kind of disparity, I guess, with participation in the game, and it's something that we really need to work on. Sarah, sorry, you were going to say? I
was just saying, and we've seen that as well. But the bigger clubs could take a leaf out of the clubs of the smaller book of the smaller clubs, because they are really involving the community. They are really trying to make that the hub for using Marienthal as an example, for the local area, and it works. You've got to think outside the box a little bit, and if it means a mashy course or something like that. There's a great course in the most northerly course in the UK. Have something like 4 holes just for the kids to just go and play, and that's not the 18-hole course. 4-hole course is pretty boring, but it's great for just getting the children on that first step. But you have to in such a way that you don't alienate everybody else as well. So to have a separate little 4-hole course just for the beginners and for the children, and actually even for yourself when you want to practice a real short game, is great.
Talk about the rest of your trip, whether it's some of the best golf experiences or travel experiences, or just things that happened to you guys along the way while you were traveling. I mean, I'm sure you could sit for hours and regale some stories, but give us a few highlights and maybe lowlights from the travels.
Yes, certainly. As you say, golf is a big element of what we did, but we also did lots of non-golfing activities. We nearly died a couple of times. Stephen was nearly killed. Sorry, I shouldn't probably giggle, but it was quite nearly shot by the arrow in Tanzania. We've been lost in Hwange National Park in Zimbabwe. And whilst we were lost, we got a puncture. So Stephen's in the middle of the park changing the tyre, so I'm doing the filming just in case. Viral video, but you've got to have a belief, and we have the belief that 99.9% of people are good. And if you don't have that belief, then you could be looking over your shoulder the whole time, and that's not fun. You want to just embrace and enjoy. And I think the other thing that when you're doing something like this is, don't be too rigid. Using Namibia as an example, we had an idea of what we wanted to do, and we couldn't get across the Orange River where we wanted to get across in the Richtersveld, so we had to go all the way down to the coast and then across that way. But what we did is it opened up Orangamund as a golf course, which we didn't know there was one. We thought, how many golf courses do we not know about? So we did some research in Namibia, and it came up with 8 golf courses. We played 9. So you've got to flex and be fluid, and sure, some of them weren't great, but we did play all of them in Namibia, so not many people can say that. But you also, having that as a map, you can plot yourself around the country and see much more as well. But we've been lost a couple of times. We got lost in the Serengeti. That wasn't our fault, but we did get lost in the Serengeti, and we were driving around at night, so we had to get the permission from the wardens to be able to drive around at night. And there's a massive, massive pride of lion just walking past us, next to the door where you sat. Quite bizarre as well. But some of the lows are really quite sad. Obviously, the poverty and the begging is awful, and I don't cope very well with that. We did unfortunately see a body on the side of the road in Mozambique as well. The corruption in some countries is incredibly disappointing, but balance that out with the beautiful landscapes. Like we just put the video out for Rwanda. I mean, how beautiful is that country? And they've been through the genocide, so you're balancing the whole time. So the lows are when we went to the genocide memorial in Kigali, I'm in tears. It's so ring. It really, really is. But then you've just driven past a lion that's within a couple of feet of you and things like that. I'm not a fan of going on safari drives when they have a massive vehicles around a leopard, for example. I would say, come on, we're moving. I don't like that. I don't like to hassle the animal. The animal's in its natural environment, and the vehicle loaded with tourists snapping the photographs, screaming, shouting is not their natural environment. So we would actually avoid that. We would actually say, let's drive on. So that's something that we personally don't like and have never liked all the time we've been visiting South Africa.
I think most South Africans would agree with that take as well. I think we tend to try and avoid those scenarios as much as they are often promoted by the local enterprises. I have to ask you about the story with the arrow with Stephen. Just talk us through what happened there.
We booked a day with the bushmen in Tanzania, and they were they were really the bushmen. They're actually originated from Botswana, apparently. Anyway, they were the click 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 bushmen, and it was great. We had a lovely time with them.
In Namibia?
In Tanzania.
Okay.
And they were, dare I say it, as high as kites. They before they go out on their hunting, they're smoking and a bit blurry-eyed and stuff. Anyway, so we were just following them with the camera, and I'm chatting to the head guy, well, as much as I could anyway, in my clicking language. And and there's a rock rabbit in a small pile of rocks, and Stephen had positioned himself to get the filming, and they're all the bushmen had surrounded this pile of rocks. There were maybe about maybe about a dozen bushmen, and they were looking in every crevice of this pile of rocks. And then this rock rabbit ran out and past Stephen. One of the bushmen turned around with his arrow and went to shoot it, and it missed Stephen by about that much.
Oh my God.
So, I mean, we laugh about it because what else can you do? If it had hit us, it might not be the same result. But right now, we think it's quite funny, And even when we went whitewater rafting and on the Zambezi and nearly died there, that wasn't. Now we can laugh about it. At the time, it wasn't pleasant, but now we can laugh.
I can just picture the headline. British tourist killed by local bushman.
Yeah.
British golf tourist killed by bushman. Yeah. Golf journalist. Yeah, exactly. Well, that's the thing, isn't it? Is that often those sort of experiences are at the time are not. You need a bit of perspective, but when you look back on them, you know that's kind of what makes them, I guess, is that. And honestly, part of the reason why so many, as you know, South Africans it's at times a fraught place to live, and many, we have many friends and family who all decide to move to different parts of the world. But for a lot of us, there's something that's hard to explain about living in this country, and part of it is actually sort of that there's an element of feeling alive with kind of living a little bit closer to some elements of danger than you normally experience. It's kind of hard to describe to people, because some people would say, well, that doesn't sound very fun, but I think it's kind of an innate sort of human quality that we need, sort of a human quality that we need some sort of slight danger near us every now and again to keep us on our toes.
Well, it's different for you in South Africa. When you say zebra crossing, you mean something different to us.
100%, yeah. So I had a question. I think you kind of you touched on it in your answer just now, but I was thinking about playing a round of golf for most of us amateurs is actually almost a bit like traveling through Africa. It's often a bit of a roller coaster. So I don't know, how would you compare the two, and like what kind of lessons have you taken from that trip in terms of both the golf that you experienced as well as just the travels? Like, what have you guys taken out of it, sort of lessons that you can share?
Well, I think the main thing is have an idea, have a structure of what you want to do, but don't stick to it. Do what you want to do when you get there, because the reality is you're probably never going to go back again. So do as much as you can when you get there. You're not going to. I've stood on the tee in Haven in Malawi, and I just asked the caddy, "What's the line?" He said, "Oh, it's to the right of the wildebeest." How often are you going to be given? We've had so many wild animals come into play literally on our golf, but the takeaway is have a target like we had the Africa 100 because that really focused us. It's very easy to drift when you're doing something like this. Oh, I'll just go down there. I'll just do this. When you've got a target, you're focused. And that helped us. It certainly helped us. And I don't think anybody's ever done that either. And that also helped us. But be fluid. Have an idea, but be fluid with that idea. If you can't, I've seen some people's schedules and they're doing this on this day, this on this day, and it's like, oh my God, it's brilliant that you're doing like that. But we quite often would set off in the morning, really knowing where we're going to be staying the next night. And that's scary, but also exciting. We've also found some rubbish campsites, and we found some really, really nice campsites as well. So don't stress over the facilities. Some of them are pretty awful. Don't mind getting a bit smelly because you won't be able to get a shower for a few days or something like that.
Yeah.
It's just relax and enjoy what you've got. There's some amazing scenery and the people are stunning. Playing one of the golf courses again in Malawi, a place called Makakola. It's all baobabs. How many times are you going to be given a chance to play in amongst baobabs? It's beautiful. You've just got to take the opportunity when you do and work with it.
Yeah, that sounds incredible. I need to look up your Malawi videos. But I think being fluid and relaxing and enjoying what you've got is a very good advice for playing a round of golf as well, because I think a lot of us amateurs take golf way too seriously, and really it's there to be enjoyed. So I thought there's some very interesting parallels between your trip you've done and actually just playing the game of golf. Sarah, I know you guys had a match, a 100 game match, which was on the go between you and Steve. Are you able to share the results of that match yet, or is it?
No, I can share it because it's quite funny.
Okay.
Really, we were neck and neck. We're reasonably close in handicap. We were neck and neck, and we got to a stage where we played 99 golf courses, and Stephen was winning. And I thought 50 versus 49.
Wow.
And then I actually won the final golf course, and we actually scored 50-50.
Wow, that's incredible. Yeah, okay. That's amazing.
Yeah, so, I mean, people might think that's a fix, but it wasn't. That's just how it was. There were some golf courses we took halves on before we'd even started playing because of the condition of the course or whatever.
Okay.
But it was a competition against the two of us. But we were never more than 3 games apart at any one stage either.
Okay.
So it was well matched. And some days I would have a good day and some days Stephen would have a good day. So
incredible. Well, that is the ultimate test of your marriage, was playing 100 match through Africa, and you survived. So well done.
Sat in the car for hours talking to each other, or sometimes not talking to each other. Then playing golf against each other. You've got a strong relationship to do something like that. That would be the other piece of advice. Don't go with someone that you can't get on well with.
So tell me I know you guys are just finding your feet now after just coming back, but what's kind of next in terms of, getting, obviously you got a lot of content to get out from your trip. What are your plans on that front? And I'm sure you must have spoken about what the next trip is that you guys have got planned.
We have. Obviously, as you just said, we have lots of content we need to get out onto social media and write the articles, that kind of stuff. The other thing we need to do is get Andi the Landy back and do a bit more than just a bush fix, give him a jolly good overhaul. We'll probably find all sorts of things within the cavities of Andi. And then we have a few ideas. Nothing's firmed up yet because, to be honest, we only landed back into UK a week ago. We've gone to Christmas, but we've got a few ideas. It could be Europe. It could be the US. We've got a couple of ideas. Andy not take Andi to the US because they probably won't let him because he's full of naughty emissions.
Where is Andi right now?
Just heading into Oman on the high seas.
Okay, so where did you ship him out of?
From Mombasa. Back.
Okay.
So he's gone a highfalutin route, Oman, Spain, and then I think UK.
Okay, so he won't be home for Christmas, I assume.
No. End of January, beginning February. We hope.
Okay. Sarah, what a trip. And thank you so much for sharing your time. Can you just maybe give a shout out to people who want to catch up on your content on social media, maybe where people can find you guys, your details, your social media details?
Yeah, sure. Social media is at Travel Lifestyle Golf, and it's pretty much what we do: travel, lifestyle, and golf. We're across all of them. I'm probably best on Instagram. Also, YouTube. We have a channel. We try to keep the videos fairly short, so we keep the attention going. And sometimes we do golf-centric videos. Sometimes we do non-golf. Sometimes, for the sake of Rwanda, there was only one golf course, so we did the whole lot together. So we try and mix it up a little bit. But we're very keen to promote to the non-golfer as well as the golfer, because we feel that that's something that everybody can do. If you're a couple, one golfs, one doesn't, you can still go off and do these kind of adventures. So we're on at Travel Lifestyle Golf.
Awesome. And guys, I would highly recommend checking out some of the videos. There's some very entertaining stuff in there. Sarah, awesome, amazing trip, and it's so cool to chat to someone, and well done on kind of, I guess, highlighting both traveling in Africa as well as the golf side of Africa. I think people would be surprised at the sort of variety of golf that we have on the continents.
Absolutely.
And I have no doubt that you've probably inspired some other people to make a trip, not only to see the big five, but maybe to play 5 or 6 golf courses as well. So,
that's what we want.
With that, I wish you a very merry festive season, and I trust all the home renovations go well there. And look forward to staying in touch with you guys.
That's lovely. Thanks so much for your time, T, and thank you for organising the podcast. Good luck with it all. You're doing a great job.